Hi everyone, nubkeks here, welcome back to Nub Raids, and in today's video we're talking about the big guy at the back. No, not Norak, the other big guy. We're talking about Opardin Clanfather. How good is he? How strong is he? And is he good against Hydra? Can he do the job? This was the fusion that happened in January, and I think when he first came out, a lot of people were really negative about Opardin. I think that since then, people have come around a little bit. They're kind of giving him another chance and being decently impressed, but we'll see how he performs in today's video. And yeah, guys, but before we dive right in, obviously we have to mention the real world situation that's happening at the moment. Russia invaded Ukraine this morning, which is, by the way, there's no info from Plarium yet. A lot of their offices are in the Ukraine, the devs that work on Raid Shadow Legends. So yeah, we're just hoping that they're all okay, hoping they're doing well. It's pretty horrible stuff. I don't usually agree with the Taoiseach. I'm Irish, right? But our Taoiseach, basically Prime Minister, said this stuff today. And honestly, like this, I usually don't agree with him, but I think he hit the nail on the head right here with this one. If you can solve problems without a military invasion, that's how you should solve problems. It's just wrong, honestly. That's my genuine opinion. I'm sorry for getting political, but it is just wrong. Anyway, let's dive in. Let's talk about Opardin Clanfather, guys. Let's look at him. So this is the build that you're going to be seeing in today's video. And it's not entirely crazy, right? I obviously didn't roll up his weapon. I didn't bother rolling up the weapon. He does not benefit from attack. And it could do with better glyphs for sure, but it's not too shabby. What have we done with his build? We've cranked his HP up reasonably high, and there's actually room for growth there. I think it's pretty easy to push him beyond the 80,000 mark. Attack does nothing. Give him a bit of defense. 2,000, 2,500 should be plenty. You could crank it up to maybe 3,000 or more if you're going into higher difficulties of Hydra. He's got 227 speed, so I do want him pretty fast. Crit rate I actually think is quite nice on him. I was only able to get 31%, but crit rate's actually pretty decent. Get a bit of extra damage out. Accuracy doesn't really do anything. And then resistance, trying to give him a good chunk of resistance. And I've put him into a Guardian set with a Perception set. Now the Perception set is here because it's simply what I had. Okay, not a good set for him. I normally wouldn't bother, but I just had the piece of gear already rolled up and good to go. Guardian set, though, I think is really good. Absorbs 10% of all damage dealt to allied champions. This is fantastic, right? He's just going to be a big tank helping them stay alive. Also heals him every turn by 10% of his HP, and his HP is going to be cranked up really, really high. So we're looking for pieces of gear with speed and HP on them. Some resistance on them would be good as well. Like this piece isn't too bad. HP, resistance, a bit of speed. Got HP gloves with 3 rolls of speed. This is why he's in perception gear. HP chest with 1 roll of speed. Speed boots. And then we're going to be going for, you can see his accessories aren't fully rolled up here at all, but HP ring with HP. HP necklace as well. You could do a defense necklace or a defense ring. That would be fine too. And then a resistance banner. Again, preferably with speed on it. HP percent on it too would be a thing to go for. For his masteries, I didn't actually fully finish them because I don't think he actually benefits too much from the 3rd mastery in the red tier. But he is going down into War Master to up his damage against the Hydra. We're going to be grabbing him Life Drinker on the way, help him stay alive, especially with that Guardian set. And then we're getting him just a whole bunch of healing stuff. The big thing to get is definitely this Lasting Gifts, which can extend the duration of any buff that he casts. And in this case, I actually don't have him booked. He is not yet booked, but we're going to see how he does without it, right? Booking him, I actually think, you'll see, I think it's pretty worthwhile. But basically, it would reduce his cooldowns to 3 turns. So it's massively upping his healing, right? An extra, what is that? Like an extra, every 3 turns instead of every 4? It's an extra chunk. Maths is hard on the fly. But Clan Mentor removes block buffs, removes heal reduction, 2 continuous heal buffs on all allies for 2 turns, and can also remove another random debuff. So this is very powerful, especially if you combo him with like someone with block debuffs, where he can just remove the true fears from the Head of Torment, and he doesn't need to remove the other buffs. He's just sort of guaranteed to remove those fears, which is awesome. Obviously, if you don't have block debuffs, he'll do some buff removal, which is good, and definitely he'll always remove that heal reduction from the Head of Decay, which is very valuable. This just does a lot of healing, right? 2 continuous heals for 2 turns. It's a lot of healing. Rally the Tribes is an AoE attack, which also heals all allies by 10% of this champion's max HP, 15% if they've continuous heals, which they nearly always will, right? Because he puts out continuous heals, then he does Rally the Tribe the next turn. so it should be 15% of his max HP. His base HP is very high, so it's a good chunky heal. And then his A1 gives him a bit of turn meter, can decrease enemy turn meter, but we're really not going to worry about that. And it's his passive then which comes in, and I think is actually really, really good. Every time a continuous heal buff heals an ally, fills that ally's turn meter by 5%. Now, the fact that he puts out 2 continuous heals for 2 turns, right, is that he basically does 2 10% turn meter boosts. So, yeah, Clan Mentor, every time he casts it, is a 20% turn meter boost, albeit it is sort of slowly doled out. It's not doled out all at once. It's actually not that incomparable to an Arbiter giving 30% turn meter, just it's not all at once, it's slower. And yeah, whenever it gets extended by lasting gifts over here or a buff extender, suddenly you start getting more value out of it. If you bring in someone else with continuous heals, he's going to start doing some turn meter stuff off their continuous heals as well. So I think it's a really nice passive. That's value is hard to measure, but I think it does contribute actually to a fair bit of stuff. So if we take a look at this particular Hydra run, you can see we're coming in here. I also want to talk about Norak a little bit here in today's video. But what have we got happening with Opardin? So this is it's just the normal Hydra. But you can see we're actually coming up to a 1 key already. And we're going in, we've got Ninja in for damage. Tomb Lord obviously does a bit of damage, and the rest are mostly supportive champions. But here goes Opardin, boom, putting out a bunch of continuous heals, removing a couple of those little debuffs around about as well. Not too bad. But you can see he's got, 2 3-turn continuous heals on himself. And you'll see that turn meter tick up and carry over whenever anyone gets a turn. We can pay attention to Opardin when his turn comes around next time. He should be doing Rally the Tribes next for an AoE hit. Let's see, is he going to go? But you should see his turn meter. Look at that, boom. He's got a chunk of turn meter already there and good to go. He got another bit of turn meter then from his A1. So it's, it's a small thing, but it does add up, which is awesome. With this particular team for Hydra, what have I tried to do? This is not the A team, it's not the B team. This is the C team, really, which is the leftover champs that I didn't use for the higher difficulties. We're throwing them into the normal key and see how they do. So really nice champion to combo with Opardin I actually found was Melga. I think Melga, she is an epic Spirit Affinity Dwarf. I think she's excellent to go with Opardin. She's fairly obtainable as just a regular epic champion. Melga, on a 3-turn cooldown, puts out a shield, and she also puts out another continuous heal. So the continuous heal is the obvious synergy. It's another continuous heal that, gives a bit more turn meter with Opardin. It's quite nice. The bigger thing, though, that Melga does, I actually think the shield is perhaps even more valuable, because the weakness I found with Opardin, when I tried to run him as my only healer, was that his heals come in slowly. This is the thing, right? So people get nuked, he pops out all the continuous heals, but when he puts out those continuous heals, they don't do anything until that champion is able to actually take a turn, and then they get healed. So I found that my battery, that's me, not you. That's from the recording. I found that the squishy champions I have here, like Tomb Lord and Ninja, are not built tanky at all. That basically they could just be killed, if the head of Wrath popped off and the head of Blight, if both of them were doing their AoE damage smacks, overlapping, they might simply die before the continuous heal got a chance to proc. So I actually found that running a shielding champion or ally protection champions, strengthen champions, anything like that with Opardin is very, very good, because it buys your champions time. It helps them stay alive, withstand the onslaught, and then the healing comes in and can top them back up. I found that to be very effective. So I actually think another recent fusion from last year, Sigmund, the High Shield, I think he'd be a very, very good companion with Opardin. He gives you a big shield and strengthen on a 3-turn cooldown, so high uptime on that shielding. So similar to Melga, but I think perhaps even more effective in just the keeping you alive situation. So yeah, that was sort of one of the big weaknesses with Opardin that I found, and how I sort of got around it. With the rest of this comp, we also have Ursula the Mourner. I think she's also very good with Opardin. She gives us that strength and increased defense, so that's also part of what I was talking about, helping us stay up and alive. She also gives us increased attack, puts decreased attack on the enemy, and she gives us access to a revive. That's something Melga does as well, another reviver. Opardin does tons of healing, but he doesn't bring any reviving, which is something that you're often, they often overlap those roles. So I'm thinking of like Rector Drath, Melga in this case, Melga Steel Girdle. I'm thinking of Godseeker Aniri, right? We often have our healers comboed with our reviver. You need to bring another reviver, obviously, alongside Opardin. So yeah, that's just something to be aware of as well. I mean, Godseeker Aniri is a really good combo too. She extends your buffs, right? So she extends those continuous heals, gives you even more coverage, even more turn meters. So she'd be great with him too. Tomb Lord and Ninja, they're basically just in for damage. Tomb Lord does a fun thing with his A1 placing decreased speed. You can decrease speed on the Head of Blight on turn 1, which means that block buffs stops the poison cloud, and then when he cleanses off all the debuffs, that you're not sat with the Hydra heads all having poison cloud on, which is a nice little synergy. And he gives us some AoE poisons, only affects some heads, but it's okay. He also gives us decreased defense and decreased attack AoE. So Tomb Lord's not bad. You guys were recommending I check him out, and I think he's decent. I think he is decent. I do feel like I'd want to change his gear for me a little bit. I don't think I've set up his gear very well. I have him built a bit too squishy. He's in like my speedrun teams, but you know, oftentimes people are building him as like this faster, tankier, regen set solo champ. I don't have mine set up like that, and I feel like that would be better for this particular Hydra. Let me just mention Norak as well. I know you guys like Norak. I've got a bunch of comments of people saying, dude, have you checked out Norak? What do you think about Norak against the Hydra? Norak's really good, right? As an AoE block buff champion, he's got a cool passive, which gives you 15% damage reduction, goes up to 25% damage reduction if one of your whichever champion's being hit doesn't have any buffs. So he really protects champions without buffs on. Unfortunately, honestly, I think Norak, I want to like him. I really do. Obviously, I've got him built. I have him booked as well. Norak is booked. Unfortunately for Norak, I feel like he's very much a B tier champion. He's like the definition of a B tier, maybe even B minus. He's just very underwhelming. I hate to say it, but he is just very, very underwhelming. I think the best comparison I can give is with Umbral Enchantress. Is literally the best. She's a Void Epic, right? So only an Epic champion. So they both have an AoE block buffs on their A2. They both have a single target, pretty hard hitting A1. But Umbral Enchantress, she hits as hard as he does, but she puts block buffs out for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. He only puts it out for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. So, 2 turns versus 3 turns, you're getting 50% more uptime off of Umbral. Well, or another way to look at it is you get full coverage of block buffs out of Umbral, whereas Norak leaves really big gaps. And the other big issue as well is that Umbral is void, so Umbral will not weak hit any of these Hydra heads, no matter what rotation, no matter what affinity of the heads. Umbral will always place the block buffs on them, whereas Norak really struggles with affinity. Norak does have a nice passive. That damage reduction passive I think is great, but honestly, I think it's pretty rough. I actually think I prefer Umbral overall. I think I would rather have the consistent affinity-based block buffs with the 3-turn duration on block buffs, just full coverage, no worries about affinity. I actually value that more than I probably value the Norak passive. So I think there's a bit of an issue with Norak for sure. This should be the place where he excels the most, and he doesn't. I really think the champion needs a bit of a buff. One suggestion I would have that would be pretty simple and pretty fun would be just have his A1 hit twice if the enemy has no buffs, right? So the idea would be he places block buffs, his AoE hits pretty hard, then his A1 actually hits pretty hard. It would absolutely be a monstrous A1 smack if the target didn't have any buffs. And it gives him like a good usage point, good in Faction Wars, dungeons, anywhere where he gets his block buffs out, in Hydra in particular. Once he gets block buffs out, stops the enemy getting buffs, then he could do some nice single target smacks. But yeah, sorry to go on a bit of a rant about Norak, but to me, yeah, he's a bit disappointing. He's a bit underwhelming, or maybe he needs another passive or something. I don't know. I just feel like he needs sort of something else. But as you can see, we've been watching a good chunk of this run right here, guys. And as you can see, we obviously have multiple. We've got, the defense thing from Norak. We've got the shields and stuff from Melga. We've got what's her face? I give mind blank. Ursula the Mourner. She's doing her things as well. We're getting through, and you can see this run actually goes on really long, and we're ultimately defeated by the Hydra heads just sort of eating us too much. And here we go. Let me show you the stats here at the end of the run so you can get a feel for Opardin Clanfather. So, first of all, let's look at his damage. Is his damage any good? Bearing in mind, he has 30% crit rate, right? He only has 30% crit rate. His damage is actually pretty respectable, okay? So in context, he's going up against my Tomb Lord here. And like I said, Tomb Lord is not built to an absolutely godly level, but Tomb Lord is not built badly either. He's got 100% crit rate, he's got some decent attack, he's obviously putting out some AoE poisons and stuff. Like, Tomb Lord's a decent champion for damage, but yeah, he's you know, Opardin, he's not too crazy far behind. He's doing similar damage to Ursula the Mourner. He's a bit ahead of her, but very, very similar damage. Norak obviously is going to do more. Obviously, a proper damage dealer like Ninja does a lot more. But for a supportive champion, I think his damage is fine, right? It's mostly coming from War Master, and the fact that he has that AoE hit to proc War Master, it's pretty good. It's not too bad. On top of that, you can see he's taking a lot of damage with that Guardian set. He's able to absorb extra damage off everyone else, effectively giving all of them 10% damage reduction, and he takes it for himself, and he's well able to take the hit. So I think that's very valuable on him. And in terms of the healing, his healing is fantastic. Guys, again, to reiterate, guys, this Opardin, right? This is an unbooked Opardin Clanfather. Look, here he is. Look at this. He's got no bucks. He's got no bucks on. And guess what? He doesn't have anyone extending his continuous heals either. And he is pumping out a really substantial amount of healing. 3 million. Compare it to Melga, who's doing 1.5 million. He's doing twice as much. Makes sense he's doing about twice as much as her. She puts out 1 continuous heal and a shield. He's putting out the 2 continuous heals. And then he also has his AoE heal on his A2 as well. So yeah, I'm not 100 million% sure if this includes the shielding. It maybe doesn't. But either way, he's pumping out a really substantial amount of healing. And if he was bucked up, this would be much better. This is obviously just on normal. But I do think if you buck him out, he could be an excellent healer for hard, perhaps even brutal, to help you stay in there. Now, I think a couple of quick comparisons. So first of all, comparison to a champion that I don't have, which I think is a really good comparison, is in terms of Bad El Khazar. So in most content, Bad El is going to be better, right? He has a 3-turn cooldown, which is a full cleanse, 2 continuous heals, and then puts out AoE poisons. Now, I feel like when you come into the Hydra, yeah, Opardin's actually a really comparable replacement for Bad El for most players. So Opardin still does the 2 continuous heals. He doesn't have the full cleanse, which is definitely a downside, but if you have that block debuffs buff, it doesn't really matter that Opardin only cleanses one thing. It's going to cleanse the unresistible, unblockable fears from Head of Torment, and that's about it if you run him with block debuffs. But the healing is very similar. The poisons obviously don't work against most Hydra heads, so I actually think when it comes to comparing him to Bad El, I think they're actually reasonably similar for Hydra. I do think that Bad El's a much better champion overall. Perhaps even slightly better against the Hydra, right? Because he does have a consistent AoE attack for War Master. But they're pretty similar, and that's a really good thing to say for someone that was simply a fusion, right? Bad El, a lot of people left a comment on my top 10, non-void legendaries. A lot of people were saying Bad El should be a top 10 legendary. To be able to come in Hydra and compete with a top 10 legendary is a pretty phenomenal thing. Now, funny enough, though, I actually believe his biggest competition, she's obviously cropped up in lots of my videos before. I think Demitha is probably his biggest competition, though. I think Demitha is completely overpowered, as you know from my videos, but she's better. I think she's just a better version. So she has 1 continuous heal and block damage for a turn on a 3-turn cooldown. That's pretty comparable to his move. Arguably a bit better, give up 1 continuous heal to get block damage instead, but then it's her Light of the Deep move, which extends all your buffs, decreases all your debuffs, and on Hydra, this is basically always a full heal for your entire team on a 3-turn cooldown. On top of the buff manipulation, just pushes her into completely absurd territories. This move is insane. Again, check if you didn't see my Demitha videos, you can check it on the channel. I use her a lot, and she is capable easily of solo heal. I've never done Nightmare Hydra. We don't have it unlocked yet in my clan, but I have had her solo heal brutal pretty much no problem. Like, I don't think Opardin could do that quite as comfortably. I think he would need more support than Demitha has. She also has a nice aura. So that's, to me, is probably his biggest rival, actually. It's probably Demitha, but he's really not bad. He's really not bad. I think he's a very solid champ. I think he is very underrated. I will be booking mine out when I have some spare books. There's a lot of champs. I want to book Sigmund. I'm going to be getting Mithralis soon. I need to book her. There's a lot of champs, but you guys want a video on Nogdar, the Headhunter? So I need to book him. I really want to book my Helior too. I've got a lot of champions I really want to book right now. I've never booked Drexstar, just never had the books for it, yeah? But yeah, there you go. Opardin, is he good? Yes. Yes, he is. Opardin is a very strong option. Don't let the hate deceive you. Like I said, a lot of people are coming around to it, but he is a good, solid healer for Hydra. He's going to be a good, solid healer for any sort of progression in the game. And it's that very difficult to measure X factor, that turn meter boost that really pushes him up to that next level. It's like, yeah, he's going to provide a ton of healing, but it's also that sort of almost invisible little bit of turn meter that's going to add up over time and help you to push further in your keys as well. So there you go, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.